When we were introduced to the idea of the Sonic Rainboom, it was described as nothing but an old mare's tale, and I have a hunch as to why. Before I go and fully explain everything, I'd better warn every pony that I'll be covering some previously trampled groundwork regarding the Rainboom and its effects. Sorry, but in order for the standout parts to make sense, I kinda have to. Rainbow Dash claimed that she was able to make a Sonic Rainboom as a filly, and we know this is true. We also told that without that Rainboom, the main six might never have met. This is played out time and again when Starlight, Glimmer, Twilight Sparkle, and Spike go looping back and forth through that event in history, each loop with its own future outcome for Equestria, including one where Nightmare Moon reigns, presumably because the elements of harmony were not reused. More about that later. If the Sonic Rainboom was an old mare's tale, what was the legend inspired by? I'm going to suggest it goes back to the original uses of the elements of harmony. We've seen the elements used roughly 1,000 years before on Discord and Nightmare Moon. The elements might not have been used again, likely because Celestia was either unwilling or unable to wield them again after banishing her sister to the moon, and I'm betting on unable to. When Nightmare Moon returns at the Summer Sun Festival, Celestia is implied to have been put away somewhere, possibly into the sun. After all, once Eternal Night is achieved, no one would see Celestia again, and Celestia would not be able to see Equestria. When Nightmare Moon is restored to Luna, Celestia reappears when the sun peaks over the horizon. But presumably, this happens without the help of the elements by Nightmare Moon, meaning she was able to banish and trap Celestia without their use. Carry this knowledge into the timeline where Nightmare Moon reigns. Celestia is implied to have been imprisoned in the moon, ironically enough. Again, no elements required. And since this version of Nightmare Moon achieved Eternal Night and is in the castle of the two sisters, she'd have direct control over the element spheres, keeping them a closely guarded secret. A secret that already extended 1,000 years before. Celestia hadn't used them since Nightmare Moon's imprisonment, and would not have wanted to discuss the banishment of her sister. No one would have regarded the elements as more than the stuff of legends. After Nightmare Moon's return, some might have realized they were not legends but history, but even when Twilight Sparkle explained the lore, there were questions on the authenticity. So with the history of the Rainboom in place, what exactly is it? I think it's a manifestation of the elements of harmony's magical force. Try to think of equestrian magic like frozen water. It can have a definite shape like snowflakes have shapes based on specific conditions. If you blow up a flake to be large enough, you could make a specially shaped container that only specifically shaped flakes could fit into. The round block in a round hole idea. Once it's in that container, it can melt to fill that container. Like a bathtub or a bucket, the larger the containing vessel, the greater volume of water, or magic in this case, needed to fill it. For instance, when Twilight and Spike went to Nightmare Moon's Eternal Night world, she was all magicked out and needed time to recharge. But if the vessel is too shallow for the water being poured into it, or we shake the container or jostle the water, there's spillage over the sides. Rainbow Dash is, magically speaking, a shallow vessel. Her immense speed boost was her dumping her cutie mark-driven power over the sides, spilling it out into the local area around her. Rainbow was always wanting to go fast, even as a filly. She was driven to go faster, to win, to be better, like she has a store of energy pushing her to achieve more and more. It took time for that level of magic of drive to accumulate. But once it started, she was winning competitions and awards. This could easily explain how Rainbow Dash was able to perform the Rainboom as a filly relatively easily, but took effort to do so as a mare. Her life up to that point was passively collecting her magic until she was able to jostle it enough to make the Rainboom happen. Then, once fired off, she was unable to make it happen again, try as she might, because she'd expended her cache of magic. The closest thing she was able to do like that was the first use of the elements on Nightmare Moon. This again would have drained some of that magic from her, but again, she starts refilling her reserves. With the Young Flyers competition approaching, we learn that Dash has wanted to recreate that Sonic Rainboom for years, but just not able to do it. It isn't until she had to rescue Rarity and the Wonderbolts from falling to their deaths that it happens. She dove through a similar area from when she was a filly, with similar drive, and forces it to happen. So Rainbow Dash is able to passively accept her magical force. She's diving toward the ground not far from her original Sonic Rainboom location, willing the magical boost she'd need to break that barrier, and she does. She splashes the magic over the sides of her container, triggering the magical explosion, getting the speed needed to save Rarity and the Wonderbolts. She's now attuned to this magic, this feeling of how to bring it out of herself, tapping into it like the well-trained athlete she is. So after the changeling invasion, right on cue. Boom! Simple. And when she's with the pirates against the Storm King, she can now just fly up and boom, do it on command. Oh, by the way, dumb move, Dashy. Dumb move. But just what was the actual effect of the Sonic Rainboom on the main six, and what is its origin? I have a hunch about that too. Until next time, safe travels, every pony. I wish you well, and may Luna watch over you.